Hi everyone, just got to do a video on why our brains and why we as people focus so much on the negative all the time. We don't put that much value on the positive. All this comes back down to is when the humans were first gracing the earth and they were all about survival. So everything that they'd be doing would be as a result of trying to establish, is this going to kill me by doing this? Or if I do this, will it help me survive? And through however much the people and humankind have evolved over the years, our brains have still got that instinct within us, as in thinking anything that's bad, anything that's negative, anything that's dangerous is going to kill us. And that's not necessarily the case. We know that's not the case. But that's how our brain's doing it, and that's why we sort of flood ourselves sort of physiologically sometimes or physically, and we will feel certain sensations within us when something bad happens, or if we get a bit of criticism, for instance, that can really eat some people up. And it's hasn't necessarily got to be like that, but it's how our brain's interpreting things. And so through however much we've gone through since the caveman era, we're still carrying some of those instincts in 2020, and that accounts so much for things such as anxiety and things like that as well. So as we're carrying these kinds of things, obviously it's a little bit of a sort of disparity between where we are now, what's happened in the past, and we're not necessarily responding to modern day threat accordingly. And things that are negative or sad or in our past, we're letting them things consume us quite a lot still, and that's unnecessary. Now we're in 2020 now, and it's very much about activism of seeking equality across the world, and we don't seem to be doing that much of it within us for ourselves. If ever you've experienced this thing with somebody where you could say to them, I could tell you 99 positive things about you, but there's one thing I could tell you that was negative, you'd focus on that negative. It could be true for yourself as well. It could absolutely consume you, and the 99 positive things, they just wash over you, barely acknowledge them. And that one negative thing, you'd absolutely chew up. And no, I experienced that when I used to come to parents' evenings at school, and I'd absolutely hate it. I'd dread it because I weren't putting in much of a shift at school. And so I knew that I was going to get criticised in front of my parents. And I'd be filled with dread, and it would happen. And it weren't pleasant. It really wasn't pleasant. And then I experienced that later on when I worked for companies, and I'd have appraisals and stuff like that. So the way I overcome that was be self-employed. I'm just joking. So what we find ourselves in is, if we focus so much on the negatives instead of the positives, we can look back on our past and we can sit in things, we can dwell on our past, and we will focus on the negatives more, and that could be quite unhelpful and quite detrimental to our mental health in general. If in the present we're looking for the negatives all of the time and we're not looking for the positives because we're too consumed on the risk of the negative, like being a threat to us, we don't appreciate the great things that are happening to us today. And if we focus so much on the negatives for the future, then our future looks pretty bleak, doesn't it? I wouldn't want a future where it just looks crap. So focusing on negatives too much can be quite dangerous to us. What I'm going to suggest to you is that there's a few exercises you can do to sort of readdress the balance. But one thing I'm not going to do is say, I'm going to get rid of negatives for you, or let's clear the negatives out of this, because negatives have been quite useful to you before. They've served you well, actually, because they've allowed you to evaluate a situation and to realise that there is risk there is threat there. We're not 100% safe, but we're a lot safer than we used to be, and we're certainly safer than our instincts are telling us that we are. But it's necessary to look at things that are happening to us and to realise that there is risk there. If we don't acknowledge the risks, then we go blindly into something, and we do put ourselves in unnecessary danger. Looking left or right before you cross the road. If the negativity of the thought of I could get run over here wasn't present, then you'd probably get run over. Chances are eventually you would. So, it's about being proportionate, and the thing here is about addressing and giving the same value that you give to negativity to positivity as well. So as much focus as you give to negativity, you've got to readdress that now and start looking at the positivity and the things that have happened that are good as well as the bad. You cannot experience and go through grief and loss without love, because the pain that you feel in grief and loss is proportionate to the amount of love that you felt. So experiencing that side of things in life, there's still things to be grateful for, and that's the thing when people come through to the acceptance and meaning stage of grief, for instance, and you have to go through other stages to get there first, I would add, is that they can look back with more happiness than pain on memories, on the positive things, on the good things. And so let's have a look at some things, shall we? So think of something at the moment that you're struggling with, something that's really having a negative effect on you, if it's a thought, if it's an emotion or something like that, something that you're really struggling with. Put it down on a bit of paper, and then we're going to do the typical positives and negatives list. But in order to address that, do not ask yourself, what's the positives and what's the negatives out of this? Don't ask yourself that as one big block question. You have to address these two things exclusively. Firstly, you set yourself the task, what are the positives from this situation? And let yourself sit in it and let yourself work it out, because there'll be positives. There will be things, whatever you've experienced in life, there'll be positives to take from things. Even if the positive is to realise you never want that to happen to you again, but at least I know that now. But if you're going through hardships or something like that, you can take the positives that you've learned so far. You've survived it and you're resilient. If you've been in a job that you've hated for a long time, have you met people there that you've enjoyed knowing? Have you made a friend out of it somewhere along the line? Do your clients really make your day? Have you learned things? Again, you can learn from negative experience as well. If something bad's happened to you, you can learn from that and think, well, how am I going to make sure it doesn't happen again? There's lots of positives to take from any sort of situation, but you've really got to think about it and look for it. And you've got to ask yourself the question, what is the positives? And then you can ask yourself the question, what are the negatives? So each point that you've made on there, that's got one mark. That's one positive mark and one negative mark. You cannot give a negative a score of 100 if you're not going to give the positive a score of 100. So that's readdressing that balance. Next thing to do is, bloody list. I love a list. So do your positivity list. All the things that you're grateful for, things that really make you smile, make you laugh, make you happy. That could be memories from your past, things you're looking forward to, people in your present that you really appreciate having, and the things you enjoy doing. And allowing yourself sometimes to really be in a moment with people as well. People that you truly love and adore and have a great time around. Give yourself the permission and the opportunity to be in that moment sometimes and just look around and to appreciate what it is that's going on for you. If you're going to go visit somewhere new or do something that you enjoy doing, make sure in the middle of all that you're actually experiencing it and you're drinking in that experience and realising how great it is. Now, the classic adage to this thing is that some people like roller coasters. It's not for me. But if the negativity of that feeling of that rush was to override that, you wouldn't get on a roller coaster. But people get such a high from that because the high is proportionate to the negative thing that they're purporting to be the risk. That's why it feels great. So there's that sort of thing we can do. Also, limit the amount of time that you spend absorbing the news. If you watch the news 5 nights a week and there's 10 stories on the news per night, probably out of those 50 stories you could be looking at 2 or 3 positive happiness stories. The rest of them are all negative. You're allowing that to feed into you, and the news corporations, it's their objective to be the number one news channel that everyone trusts, everyone likes. They know that humans focus on negatives more. So they want to fill you with as much negativity as possible and keep your viewing going for as long as possible. It's important to them to be, accurate and trustworthy in their news reporting. Obviously, take a political stance. So take that on board though, and realise that if you want to be kept up with current affairs, watch the news once a day for half an hour. Do not sit there with whatever news channel on in the background unless it's your job and it's going to make a vast difference to you professionally. It's normally the same old news flowing through day, like hour after hour. Don't let that keep flooding into you, because it's having an effect on you. Also, one of the last things I'll say to you is be conscious of the language that you use. I know I talk about language quite a lot, but in some of my other videos, it has a massive effect on the way it influences how we think and the physiological effects that we experience. So saying things that are absolute, such things as, "Oh, this always happens to me," "Bad things always happen to me," that's an absolute statement. You're saying it always happens to you. That's discounting all of the good stuff that's happened in your life. Or, "Oh, good stuff never happens to me." Never, absolutely never. They hold the same value, and they're absolute crap. Good things do happen to you, and if you feel that they don't happen to you, they certainly can happen to you if you look for them. If you think things never happen to you, then they can happen to you again if you look for them. But if you keep focusing on the negatives and allowing yourself subconsciously and unconsciously to be absorbing that sort of thing in, that's going to have an effect. It's up to you now to make positive choices, to look for positivity. If you realise that you've got a negative sort of thought going through your head at the moment, then refer back to that positivity list. Think of something good. Think of something that's great, and try and keep that positivity going in you, because it really needs to be a balance that's addressing all of this. And yeah, just make sure that you're in the present more and more. I won't take up too much more of your time now. As I say, the way your brain is responding and why you're thinking negatively is not necessarily a representation of you. It's a representation of how the brain is wired, and that's as a result of how all humans are wired, to look for danger, to look for risk, and to assess criticism and to assess bad things as terrible things, and not necessarily. So keeping things in proportion is so important. Give a score of positivity the same score that you give to a negativity factor. Do those things. Create a list of positivity that you can refer back to. It just needs to be in your head. And also, give things a view. Be in the moment. Drink in the positivity of your friends and family and loved ones being around you. Enjoy experiences, whatever you're doing. Whatever makes you happy. Realise you're doing it because it makes you happy in that moment. Thank you so much for listening. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm on Dynamic Therapy Club. If you go to Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, anything like that, look up Dynamic Therapy Club on there. I'm on all of those channels. If you feel like there's some blockages, some things that you want to work on, that you're struggling to overcome at the moment, then please get in contact with me and let's book a session together. Now, I'm listed on Psychology Today. I'm listed on Counselling Directory. You can contact me through my Facebook pages or through this link below the post. Anything you want to do, visit my website, dynamictherapy.club. Or if you're more into sort of alternate healing and you believe in sort of clearing blockages of energy, if you feel you've got like a lot of negativity within you and you're experiencing that, perhaps you believe in things like, and you see the benefits of Reiki. That's available through Dynamic Therapy as well. So get in contact with that. I've got a great practitioner who does Reiki level 3. Get in contact and let's work on this. Thanks so much. I hope you have a great afternoon and evening. Take care. Bye bye.